All right, Mr. Chair, you are good to go.
Okay, so being Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023 at 6:30 PM and having quorum. Item 1, I'll call the Bridgewater Planning Board to order. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the provisions of the open meeting law pursuant to the governor's approval of a supplemental budget bill. Temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law have been extended to March 31st, 2025. Specifically, this further extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at a meeting location, and to provide adequate and alternative access to remote meetings. The language of this extension does not make any substantive changes to the open meeting law other than extending the expiration date of the temporary provisions regarding remote meetings from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025. Members of the public are encouraged to participate remotely and shall address questions through the chair. In this case, we have a host, Mr. O'Brien of the board. Additionally, we just like to make the following notes. If we do have a public hearing this evening, we have 3 of them. The way the public meeting will be conducted is we'll ask the applicant to make their presentation. The board and staff will then ask their questions and communicate with each other regarding the project with the applicant, and then we'll open it up for public comment. We just ask that if you do make public comment, you state your name and address for the record before stating your comment, and that you're audible to all of us, and that we can, so you have good audio connections. All votes will be taken through roll calls, and the following members of the Bridgewater Planning Board are participating remotely this evening. I'm Patrick Driscoll, the chair, Mr. Raymond Ajemian, Mr. Michael McDonald, the vice chair, Mr. Stephen Geller. Is Ms. Rojas with us yet, Mr. O'Brien?
I am.
Ms. Rojas. And then we have alternate members, Ms. MJ Spagon and Mr. Edward Ted Haley. During the meeting, I said this earlier, all votes will be roll calls, and the following Bridgewater Town staff will also be participating remotely this evening. Mr. Robert Rulli, the Community Economic Development Director, Mr. Shane O'Brien, the Town Planner, and Mr. Stephen Solari, the Building Commissioner. Mr. Greg Tanzi will not be joining us this evening. At this point, everyone's mics will be muted. The board's mics will be unmuted through the whole meeting, and as items appear on the agenda, the project's representing mics will be unmuted. If a project is a public hearing, again, and allows for public comment, that you can either use the chat feature or raise your hand. And if you use the chat feature, you can list your name and your address and your question. The host or the chair will recognize questions in order. You can also use the raise my hand feature in the participant menu, and you'll be unmuted when the chair recognizes you. Again, please state your name and address before asking the question. If you're on the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. I apologize. Some of that stuff I read twice, but it's just an old sheet and a new sheet that I was working off of, so I apologize.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, just to comment, you skipped the assistant town planner is also on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to update my sheet.
There you go.
And I apologize. Stristy, and I'm saying your name correctly. I know we just met you at the last meeting. It's Stristy Jane, correct?
You're muted, Sisty.
I have to update my sheet. I apologize. All right. So item 2, we have a public hearing this evening. The first public hearing we have is 168, 180, 232, and 242 Broad Street. This is map 21, lots 143, 144, 149, and 150. This is a proposed mixed-use development for Edgewood Development, LLC. It's a site plan review and special permit approval, section 10.6. It's a site plan approval, section 10.5, special permits, section 6.0, general regulations, section 9.6, mixed use, appendix B, table use, dimensional requirements with waivers. And this is continued from May 17th. At this point, before we open the public hearing, I just read that in. I'm going to turn it over to the vice chair, Mr. Michael McDonald. I'm going to recuse myself from this hearing, and he can appoint an alternate to serve in my place. So, Michael, are you ready to go?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.
All right, good evening, everyone. Like Mr. Driscoll said, first order of business is going to be appointing an alternate for the rest of this project. So MJ or Ed, I don't know if either of you would like to volunteer. I believe MJ has seniority if both or neither of you are interested.
I'll volunteer.
All righty. Do we have to do a vote on that, Shane, or is...
No, the chair would be assigning the alternate in this case, so MJ is taking part of the proceedings.
All righty. Now, is this is a continued public hearing, right? So we don't have to reopen this?
No, we do not have to reopen it nor read the legal ad. We do have Steve Meltzer here representing Edgewood Development Company, LLC. So
We'll get started with them then. They're ready to present.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Stephen Meltzer with me tonight is Jerry LaRusso and Joe Bartuca. We're the principals from Edgewood Development. We are on a continued hearing from May 17th. We did not bring any consultants with us tonight. So we really want to just get to the heart of the matter. Shane, am I able to share my screen so I can share these slides?
you certainly are.
Good, good. Let me make sure I pick the right screen and don't give away any secrets. Okay. All right, so does everybody see splash screen about the Henry Perkins Foundry redevelopment Broad Street, Bridgewater? Yes, okay, good. So we were here on May 17th. We gave a big overview of the project, had some of our consultants with us, received a lot of feedback then. Just as a reminder, we've been working with the town on this project for probably a good 3 years now. Had to get a rezoning through the town council, and the concepts have been morphing a bit since then, and more seriously since our meeting on May 17th. I think that Shane provided a very thorough memo to you, and in it, he opened his comments by saying that we redesigned the front two buildings so that they would comply with your guidelines in sections 9.6.8 regarding town center design. And that was a lot of the focus of the discussion that we've had with Mr. Rulli, with Bob and Shane. Since that time, we've spoken and met a few times, as well as Shane and Bob coming up to our project in Walpole, our apartment building there, getting a tour and getting a look around to see the quality of our work and the pride that we take in our properties. And again, I'm going to extend that invitation to any or all members of the board as we go through this process. If they're interested in doing that, then let us know, and we can arrange that through Shane, so that you can have a tour of that project. So as you can see, and we'll zoom in on this, and I only have a few slides tonight, so that we can have a broad discussion. But the two buildings on that front on Broad Street have been shifted, and they line up with Broad Street now, and there's parking behind them instead of in front of them to better comply with your design standards. And there's outdoor space and more walkability along the front of those buildings. Overall, and the back building, the design hasn't changed, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. So this is the old design I'm talking about for what we call Building 2 and the south side of the project. It had an L-shaped or sort of L-shaped building with parking in front of it. Although we liked this design, it didn't necessarily comply with that provision for the town center design type of project. And that's what Shane and Bob have been urging us to do, and that's what we've done in this redesign. So that's the redesign of the Building 2. The first floor is entirely commercial. We envision, as you can see, there's a a drive-through there. We envision a restaurant, maybe coffee as well, but a full-service restaurant. Nice seating out front, maybe a patio and seating out back as well for outdoor eating areas, and sidewalks along. And we can talk about the improvement of sidewalks along Broad Street generally. 3 stories, 8,450 square feet is the footprint, and that first floor is 8,400 square feet of retail commercial, and 2 floors above it. So this is only a 3-story building along the roadway. Before we had a 3-story moving up to 4-story, going back to 3-story. So this building contains 16 residential units on 2 floors, as I said, parking in the rear and outdoor seating. The north building, before we had planned with a triple drive-through for a bank, we heard a lot of feedback on that. And that building was originally all commercial, so we have changed that to a mixed-use building as well. And similar design and style to the other building. It's a slightly larger building, 11,775 square feet of commercial on the first floor. There's now a double drive-through rather than a triple drive-through on the proposed bank, and we think that we can get a bank for that spot. If we can't, then that drive-through will probably just change to a different kind of drive-through. 3 floors as well, just like in the south building. These 2 buildings are both elevated, they're not walk-up. 22 residential units on the 2 floors above the commercial on the first floor. Again, outdoor seating, walkability, and parking in the back and not along the Broad Street frontage. It's important to note, and we're going to talk about the back building now. We have designed the back building, and the original design that we had for the back building, it was about 200, I think it was between 204 and 208 feet from Broad Street. The new design, we've pushed it back significantly to 323 feet back from Broad Street. And that's to help reduce the impact of the size. It's 4 stories plus a peaked roof. And we think it's going to have, actually, with all the buildings in front along Broad Street and the fact that it is so far from Broad Street, it's going to have a minimal visual impact. If you look up from walking along Broad Street, all you're going to see maybe is the tops of some of the roofs. And we are designing those roofs to fit in with the New England theme with the peaked roofs and dormers, just to make it visually interesting. I would note that we will be filing shortly with the Zoning Board of Appeals a variance request for a height variance. The CBD zone allows for 45 feet with peaked roofs and 4 stories. We're at 63 feet. We actually do that for aesthetic reasons. We could very well do a flat roof building at 45 feet that's completely compliant with your CBD bylaw, but we think it's going to be much better looking overall and from the street and from inside the project as well, if we can architecturally add those peaked roofs and dormers, etc. For those of you who are sports fans and not mathematicians, this is roughly the distance of 323 feet. It's about a football field. And as I said, there's buildings in front of it, so it'll barely have an impact on visually on Broad Street. Here's some of the details. The chart on the left is from Shane's memo. The information on the right just fills in some missing pieces on that. As you can see, so first of all, on lot size, frontage, setbacks, ratios, lot coverage, all that, including parking spaces, we're going to be completely compliant with the bylaw. In fact, as far as the density goes, we are way under the maximum density allowed in the CBD zone. As Shane notes in his chart, with under the bylaw, we could have 237 units at 18 units per acre, and we could have 356 bedrooms. Currently, this plan shows 154 units as opposed to 237, and there's 260 bedrooms as opposed to 356 bedrooms. We're not interested in maxing out the density here. We're interested in a nice development that we can be proud of and that that everybody can be comfortable with. So we've also talked with Shane and with Bob about some of the things that we can do both in the project and outside of the project that will be good for the community and doable for us. I would note that this is sort of a list, a menu of some of the things that we thought about considering or are considering for enhancements in and within the or for the project. All of them come with a price tag to us. So we would like to, when we're done here tonight, work with Bob and with Shane on what may be best for the community as far as enhancing the area and providing a good project. And the ones I'm talking about, we could have some kind of a senior housing preference. I know that may have issues if this becomes an MBTA zone, and if you want to be counting these units towards that those minimums. Workforce housing, that's a form of affordable housing, but takes into account 80 to 120% of AMI. I know that Bob is working on putting together the new MBTA station. Perhaps there can be funding contribution towards that work that he's doing. We are a company that does site work, road construction, paving. So we have the ability to provide that kind of benefit for the MBTA station or for improvements to the sidewalks and crosswalks along Broad Street. We think that's perfectly appropriate. We want our residents to be able to get to this Hopeful Mooch train station, to be safe, and to get to downtown, to be walking back and forth. So those kinds of improvements, I think, are appropriate and doable. And perhaps there's some other offsite mitigation that we could talk about. And what we've already drafted up on this is the public canoe landing. I shared this list at the last meeting, but I think it's important and bears repeating. The community benefits of the project, which would include some of those community enhancement measures, as well as an influx of new residents in market rate units within the walking distance to downtown, multifamily housing within this prospective MBTA zone, creation of new commercial, retail, and restaurant space with its own parking near the downtown and now behind the buildings and not in front of them. We outlined and have in our fiscal impact statement the financial aspects of this, which is over $530,000 each year of new recurring town revenue, over $1.3 million in one-time fee revenue. There's going to be a low impact on the schools and town services because we're proposing, and all that's allowed in CBD is 1 and 2 bedroom units. We're going to be eliminating an industrial use downtown and therefore reducing industrial traffic downtown, cleaning up and getting rid of the old contaminated buildings and improving and cleaning up the site, which abuts the town river. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to summarize with respect to our efforts. We're hoping for some feedback. We really, as I said, we didn't, and I think as Shane alluded to in his memo, we haven't done the engineering or the specific architectural work for these changes yet. We really need, in order to do that, we really need to know that this is something that's going to work, and then we can set them afire on getting that kind of work done. With respect to the design standards and the specifics of all those, once we do that engineering and once we do that architectural work, I would hope to, on a line-by-line item, be able to respond to each of those issues, hopefully satisfy each and every one of the board members with respect to how it fits in with the vision for the downtown. And speaking of that, our goal is to really work with Shane, with Bob, with the board, with town council on helping to implement the new vision for the revitalization of the downtown area of Bridgewater, and to be a big part of that. So with that, thank you very much, Mr. McDonald and members of the board. I'll throw it back to you and let you take it from there.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. Do we have any board comments or feedback at this time?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I have a few comments, if I may.
Of course.
I just want to make a few comments, but before I do, I just want to ask one question to Mr. Meltzer. Why are you going to the ZBA and not asking us for a variance on the roof? Why go to the ZBA?
Well, we need to go to the ZBA in order to increase the height from 45 feet to 63 feet. If it's your preference that we just do a flat roof, and that's, we don't think it's great, but we would.
I'm just saying that I think the planning board has the ability to waiver the height if we so desire. That's just my thought. I'm just curious as to why you're doing the ZBA.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but if that's the case, I'm fine with that. The reason to go to the ZBA is because I think that we do, and Shane can certainly weigh in on this, I think we do need to get a variance from them, because
I believe, I'm sorry, Steve. I believe that in our zoning ordinance that the planning board can approve for an additional 5 feet. So typically, I believe in the CBD district, it's allotted that you can have 3 stories in 40 feet, in up to 45 feet through a special permit through the planning board. This isn't including AC structures and all that. Those aren't included in typical height requirements, as well as fences and screening. But in the case of anything beyond that 45 feet, that would require a dimensional variance, and the planning board can't approve variances and dimensional variances, and according to our ordinance, it would be strictly the zoning board of appeals.
All right, I appreciate that, Shane. I just thought that when the Broad Street project came before us, that we were the ones that made that decision, but that's all right. Okay, yeah, I have a few points to make. First, I just want to, I think, first of all, I appreciate the presentation, because I think it's important that we understand each other at this meeting, and so that when we go forward, we're not backtracking and arguing over things that we should be talking about right now. First of all, I think the presentation is much better than the first one you made in terms of the building locations and everything about it. So I appreciate that. I just want to read just one line of the special permit bylaw, the 10.5.2. It says criteria: special permits shall be granted by the special granting authority, in other words, the planning board, unless otherwise specified herein, only upon its written determination that the adverse effects of the proposed use will not outweigh its beneficial impacts to the town or neighborhood in view of the particular characteristics of the site and of the proposal in relation to that site. I just want to make that clear that what we're doing here is trying to make a pretty bad site into a site that is going to look good and benefit the town and not cause us more problems. So that's where I'm coming from as a planning board member. All right, when you first, Mr. Meltzer, when you first made the presentation, the back building was my major concern. Both the height and just the size and the drawings you had of the building, I just didn't like any of it. You referred to it as a New England style building, and in my opinion, it was not. What you have is better, but it's certainly not a village style layout. In other words, you don't have, if you're going to walk from one building to the other, you're walking through parking lots. I would prefer to see that back building cut up into maybe two buildings, more and maybe facing each other or something. I still, as much as you, by putting it in the back, diminishes its look from the street, I still think the building is too big and that should be reconsidered. You must have gotten the review from the DPW zoo. I mean, water and sewer has a major problem, and I think you have to look at that before you make any final presentation, because Mr. Antonero has talked about the problems of the town with sewage and water, and I believe he mentioned the possibility of you coming up with your own site. I just want to make that clear. Traffic study, I believe there was one. I think it should make sure that if we see it again, that it encompasses not only the area by the development, but also the downtown. I think this will increase traffic. I don't think there's any question about it. And so I hope that that when we look at the traffic study again, that it doesn't impact on on a major basis the number of traffic in town. Right now, we have a real problem going into town from the area of Roche Brothers Plaza, and it lines up right up to the tracks at times. So I just want to make sure the traffic study is presented again. Also in the proposal, I don't remember exactly how you talked about the crossing of Broad Street going over to Roche Brothers Plaza. That is an issue. Obviously, you just don't want people walking across. It's got to be safe. The police chief has shown concern with more apartments. He has said that the police have more runs to these apartments than before. They're overburdened on them. I believe somebody suggested at the last meeting that some of the apartments be affordable. And that would be, I think that's something you should consider. Because that would make it easier on the town going forward in terms of our ratio of affordable to regular apartments. And the ratio of commercial to residential, I have no problem changing that in your favor, assuming we get some other things, for instance, that back building change. So those are my concerns. I also think that I think we mentioned the possibility of per service review of the project, and I think that should come about sometime when you do break your presentation. And I'm glad you mentioned mitigation, because I think a problem this size does entail mitigation on your part. Because you are going to tax the resources of this town, no matter whether they be a lot or minor, they still require some mitigation. And lastly, you mentioned the visit. I realized staff has already visited your site. I was a little upset that you didn't invite the planning board first time. So I expect.
I did invite the planning board.
Okay, well, I didn't see any invitation anyway. I would like to go. I'm sure other members would also.
Great.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know, Mr. McDonald, if you want me to respond to him individually or wait till everybody has a chance.
Yeah, sure. Might as well keep it fresh.
Okay, so in no particular order, we will, as I understand, there is capacity for water and sewer. We're going to make sure that issue is dealt with. That is going to be dealt with on more of a technical level. We do need to make sure that we have something that we're that we're trying to permit before we get too technical. So we understand that there are concerns with that, and we're going to make sure that that there is appropriate service for water and sewer. It is absolutely true that this will increase traffic. Any project will increase traffic, and every project will increase traffic. We specifically engaged the traffic engineer, McMahon and Associates, because they were familiar with your downtown. And I think that they did an excellent job in their traffic study. We're going to have to update that traffic study based on whatever ending design we have. So the traffic study that we have is going to have to be updated. And they're going to make sure that we don't cause any major disruptions with respect to traffic. But it's absolutely true that any project, especially one of this size, will have an impact. But if you want development, you have to get the traffic along with it. There are a lot of parking spaces here, and those cars have to go somewhere. One of the mitigation issues that we did talk about were the crossings. We would rely upon your staff and DPW to tell you what you would want as far as maybe an implementation and construction of crossings, but we're happy to do that. As I said, we want our residents to be safe and to be able to cross over the street, especially if there's a train station, but also to the retail area across. So that's definitely that and sidewalks as well up Broad Street towards downtown. We're happy to talk about those things. More residents mean more business for the police. We hope to have nice residents and there won't be too many problems. But we did outline in our fiscal impact study how the police department and public safety will be impacted. And I encourage everybody to take a look at that. As I said, in our menu of possible enhancements is some kind of affordability and workforce housing. So again, work with staff on what the best combination of those kinds of amenities and enhancements we can come up with. And with respect to, we have to achieve a certain density. The only way to do that is to have a building of this size. It doesn't make sense to break up the building. That just increases construction costs immensely. You add elevators, and it really, once you do it and you see the difference when it's a finished product, but also in the architecturals and renderings, having 2 buildings or 3 buildings just makes it messier, the flow harder, and the flow worse. So it's unlikely that we will be breaking up that back building in our presentations. With respect to the ratio of commercial, since you have, and I think that the board members realize this, but since the CBD bylaw was written, there's been significant economic changes with respect to bricks and mortar and commercial. The last thing we want to do, or the 2 last things we want to do, are draw all of the commercial business away from the current buildings and into our new space. And first, and then second, have vacant commercial space, which we see a lot of vacant commercial space across the street. It's better to have the right amount of commercial, fill it up, get the residents using it and using the downtown. And then other areas, I think there are other priority areas that Bob Rulli has talked about doing development. They'll just be able to leapfrog on the successes here and build bigger and better. So I think I hit on all the points that you raised, Mr. Jamie, and I appreciate your feedback.
Any other comments for the board?
I do, Mr. Chair. First, I appreciate the applicant working with the town and adjusting your two front buildings and changing things around. I think you did a fairly good job in pushing that building back. I agree with Mr. Jamie and a couple, that you're making sure the water and everything else, that was a little concern of mine. But I think the only thing that this thing is really lacking now, which I think would really help, is a, perspective of what the buildings look like if you're on the street. So,
Yeah. And we did when we first did our, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were done. I interrupted you.
I am. I just think that would put the rear building in better perspective.
Yep.
On how you would really see it by, as you push it further away back from the street, yes, it will appear to be a lot smaller.
Yep. And we did, when we originally had our design, which was much closer, we did a point of view rendering from Broad Street.
Right.
And we'll do that again. And we'll be doing that for our presentation to the zoning board. It was just a little premature at this point to do it, but we will be doing that and providing that to this board as well.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Gillen? Yes, ma'am.
I do have a couple comments as well, if that's okay.
Yep, go right ahead.
All right. Steve, thank you for coming to the board tonight and talking with us further and giving us a revised plan. I do want to build on some of the comments my colleagues have put out there. Design-wise, I do like that the buildings now face the street. I'm still not convinced that we need more drive-throughs in downtown. I do like that one of the buildings has now gone from 3 drive-through bays to 2, but I'm still apprehensive of it having another drive-through. The one on the south end would basically be right across the street from, if Campus Plaza doesn't change for one particular building, the Dunkin' Donuts and the post office, the drive-through exit would literally be right across the street from the post office and also from the entranceway of the Dunkin' Donuts. That alone could lead to accidents. And I don't see on this plan of this layout any fire lanes for any of these buildings. I'm not sure if it's just because this is for illustrative purposes and this isn't a final imaging of what the site would look like, but I'm noticing a definite lack of fire lane access, and I'm concerned about how emergency vehicles would approach this site, not only with those drive-through areas, but also with accessing the buildings in order to address any type of emergency, especially if, say, ambulances are needed or a fire engine needs to come down, especially if, say ladder 1 or ladder 2 has to attend a scene on one of the buildings. The other thing I'm concerned about is how this project generally will tie in. Obviously, there's a lot of conversation about what we are starting to address with Campus Plaza as a village type style site itself. I'm interested to understand better. If you can't answer, then perhaps Mr. Rulli or Mr. O'Brien may be able to answer for me how this project built out would positively affect the project that's going on across the street, or the proposal that's going on across the street, how those two would be in synergy with each other, because I could see there being, both operating independently of each other, but not really synergistically being, a cogent, coherent downtown plan, in that we can at least attract business, but also attract folks to live down there, but also make it more attractive, but also less traffic intensive. So those are some of my comments on. The thing I'm kind of interested to see is, I know you have in the plan a proposed boat ramp area. Is there any other way of including a little bit more of a larger parkland area, maybe a little bit to the north of the larger building set back, perhaps a small common type area? If we're going for a small village feel, that would certainly be something that would be interesting, because historically towns that are small villages used to have what would be called common pastures or town commons, And that would be something that would be rather attractive, especially if there's a boat ramp there. It could be a small river walk type area. That would be attractive not only to those living in the main building, but also those that may want to visit the shops in the other side of the Broad Street area with, if Campus Plaza does become that small village style, a river walk area would be quite attractive, and also passive recreation in that regard. It's an attractive feature and it would certainly be a good draw.
Thank you. Again, do you want me to speak to those, Mr.?
Yes, sir, if you'd like to. Go
Okay,
right ahead.
sure. So, so as far as the fire lane access, we'll definitely be looking into that and work with our traffic folks to make sure that fire and safety are satisfied. So this is preliminary and conceptual. So we will make sure that those issues are addressed to satisfy fire and safety. With respect to how this ties in to something across the street, I think like you, I think Mr. Rulli may be able to speak to that better, but basically one of three things could happen or could be happening. The one being that we go first, the next being that they go first, and the third being that we go at the same time. We're here. We've been working on this for some time. Mr. Rulli has started talking, or as I understand it, Mr. Rulli has started talking to Federal Realty. I think they're some time from developing their actual development plans. And I think it'll be incumbent upon them to work with what exists. We just happen to come first, and we can't anticipate or even know or even have any specific ideas about what they're going to do and where they're going to do it. So it's hard to plan for that. If they were coming in at the same time as us, we certainly could coordinate much better. But everything nothing is concrete, and I don't even know that they have any plans other than the discussions that Mr. Rulli has had. And again, I'd leave it to Mr. Rulli to chime in if he wishes to on that. And then with respect to a common Riverwalk area, I had the same thought, but the problem is that there is, you can't see it on the plan that's showing, but there's an extreme slope on the back of this property towards the water that is also within the riverfront protection area for wetlands. We have the canoe landing area, but we're going to have to go to Concom and get that approved. We don't even know for sure that they will be okay with it. We have to be very careful about our impact on the wetlands, and probably not able to put a park anywhere within those buffer zones. And that's all along the back. We do have a green area, as you can see, behind or in front of building 1, and we could probably make that a larger common area for a park or as a common amenity. But I hear you. I wish we could do that back there. It's going to be very difficult because of the constraints with the wetlands and the environmental and the green sand that I spoke about before, and the slope back there, extreme slope. So again, I think I hit on all the things that you raised, but I appreciate your comments. And
Mr. McDonald, could I just address some of the unanswered questions?
Go ahead, Mr. Rulli.
As I've said before, a couple things. We are an MBTA community. We presently, the area of the MBTA communities is Waterford Village back to where the existing platform is. Under the requirements of the MBTA communities, we have to show that we can create through zoning 1,400 units of housing. We're never going to be able to do that with the current platform location in Waterford Village. Even though that's a 40R and it has the ability to expand, it's not going to meet that number. So we have had those preliminary conversations with the MBTA. We know they're in agreement that we can move the platform. We've had conversations with the university. We know we can flip those lots. We are presently engaged with Horsley Witten Group to begin to revise our zoning for the MBTA communities and to adopt a form-based code. I can tell you that the zoning for this parcel will have significantly more density than it has now by right in order for us to meet that 1,400 unit requirement. Doesn't mean we have to build the 1,400 units. It just means we have to have zoning in place to be able to have 1,400 units. So 18 units an acre is going to be increased significantly. And with respect to the Campus Plaza site, I would not characterize that as a village. I think that's more in line with a town common or a downtown kind of environment, similar to what Edgewood is showing for those two front buildings. There will be significantly more density over there. By adoption of the form-based code, that will be by right. The other thing I want to add too is that Route 18 there's a corridor study done by Old Colony Planning Commission that's going to be finalized hopefully in the next couple of weeks. They've already identified that this is a bad traffic corridor. Every intersection in Bridgewater on Route 18 is rated F. So we have the opportunity to improve some of those traffic situations. We are promoting the idea of transit-oriented development. That's why we're moving the platform. So we hope to reduce the amount of, not necessarily the amount of traffic, but improve how traffic flows. And that includes how we treat traffic around Central Square. I'm pleased that being 2.5+ years into this, that Edgewood was willing to reconsider how they looked at these two front buildings. I think the opportunity to have outdoor dining, we've had conversations with an existing business owner in town that's very interested in expanding to another location. So I think that this is a much better way to utilize that space. I reached out to Mr. Metri yesterday. Housing is a crisis in the Commonwealth, and we will be having requirements in the form-based code for if developers want additional density, that we have a requirement for a percentage of workforce housing. I don't like to use the term affordable housing because people don't know what it means. But for a developer to voluntarily come forward and say, we're willing to consider setting aside a percentage of units for workforce housing, and those are teachers, those are police officers, those are first responders, that's pretty big. We don't have inclusionary zoning. They're not forced to do that. I think a trade-off on the reduction of the commercial space in exchange for getting workforce housing is big. And it's probably unprecedented in a lot of communities. So MJ, I hope I answered your question, which was short, with a very long answer. But I think I'm done.
You answered. I appreciate it, Bob. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other board commentary? Astrid?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I don't have many questions or any right now, but I was very pleased with the presentation given tonight. Like everyone else has shared, the changes and the adjustments that you've made, Mr. McDonald, are very appreciated. And, that's all I just wanted to take the moment to mention tonight.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, if I may.
Yep, of course.
Just curious to the main building, building one in the back there, and speaking of it being one structure and the size of that structure, I'm trying to gauge possibly, and I don't recall from any previous plans, if there was a width of that building as it faces the street.
There is a width. I don't actually know what it is. I would say, if we're looking, I would be just guessing that it looks like it's about 300 feet wide.
Yeah, we have a structure in town that this reminds me of as I look at the footprint. And it's Boyden Hall at in the college. It's a beautiful building. Not assuming this could ever look like Boyden Hall, but that I think, if memory serves me correct, because I've looked at it before for comparison purposes to other developments, is about 270 feet in width. So almost to scale as far as the width and quite possibly distance to the street. I think this structure that we're seeing here in Building 1 might be further away from the street on Summer Street. And I use that as a frame of reference frequently because I drive by it frequently and grew up walking through the campus. So roughly about the same size, and that's a single structure as well, though I don't think it's quite as tall. So that just kind of helps me formulate my opinion on that single structure. And I will reiterate, as everybody's saying, it's a nice presentation. I always tend to think about snow removal, so I look around for where we put snow in this parking lot. Other than that, everybody else has kind of touched upon any questions that I had. So that's it for me, just trying to get the size of that building as a reference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And like the fire lanes and emergency access, the snow removal will be part of the traffic and the traffic flow plans that we get into specifically once we're sure that this is a design that we'll be working with.
Understood.
Thank you both. I'll be brief. You got a ton of information, a lot of which I agree with, particularly Mr. Ajemian's statements. I mean, it's my belief that this project, given its size and location, central location, is going to probably set the tone for redevelopment of the downtown. So it has to be examined very carefully. And I appreciate that you're not trying to rush the process. I like this redesign quite a bit. It's much better than the previous one. The front buildings look far better to me. But I will have to say my sticking point is going to be one thing that Mr. Jemian brought up. I think the back building is too monolithic. I'm okay with the height, especially now that it's been pushed back. I think that's a great change. And I'm okay with the density. But I think it's a bit too monolithic for what we want to see in such a central location downtown. So I know you said there's expenses breaking up buildings like that. I'm sure there are. I can understand that, but I think that might be a point of contention for me going forwards.
Okay, I hear you. We'll take another look at it, but we have been thinking about that for a long time, and if you see development around the Commonwealth, you'll notice that most of the apartment complexes and buildings that have this kind of density have buildings of this size. And I don't say that because we're doing it because everybody else is doing it. I'm saying that because we do it because it's what makes sense and is doable, and may cause issues if we're breaking it up more. But we'll take a look. But I don't want to get anybody's. I don't want to be unrealistic and set anybody's expectations that we'll be able to do it necessarily.
So, Mr. Chair, I just want to add that we are scheduled to have a workshop, combined workshop with the town council, the planning board, or the ZBA, with two real estate professionals outside that aren't related to any projects that we're doing on August 22nd. Primary focus of that is to share with all these boards what development and economics are, what the cost of development is, what the cost of borrowing money is right now, what retail trends there are. And I think it's going to be informative to just enlighten people as to explaining some of the constraints that Mr. Metcher has mentioned in terms of breaking up buildings, what the economies of scale are for development. Not saying it's going to change your position. My goal is that it informs your decision. So I encourage all members of the planning board, the council, and the ZBA to participate in that workshop. It's going to be at BSU campus. But that is going to be an important part of you understanding this development and understanding where we're going with vision to reality moving forward. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that supplemental information. I don't think this country's ever had a crisis of broke landlords, nor do I anticipate one coming anytime in the near future. As far as potential compromise we can reach to, I'd be happy to discuss the commercial requirement, because I don't believe this. Do you know what? Do you have a guess as to what percentage of commercial requirement you're
I
currently
think it's,
meeting?
if you look at the number, I think it's around 12 or 13% here.
12 or 13% for the entire project?
Yep.
We require 30, is that correct, Mr. O'Brien?
It's not a requirement, but it is your guideline, yeah.
That is correct. I haven't looked over the numbers that Mr. Meltzer, I had, for my numbers, I think it was 15 or 16.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've got to do specific work with our architect. These are just conceptual, so it could be anywhere in that range.
Yeah, I mean, that is certainly a significant reduction, but like I said, it's certainly an area we can negotiate on if, if we
And
see some.
I'll just add, Mr. McDonald, I mean, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that the applicant, I mean, 2 points. This is a conceptual discussion tonight. Before they start to spend more money, they wanted to at least take the temperature of the board that, going forward with this concept is appropriate. But the opportunity for us to pick up restricted units that are affordable as an offset to the commercial space is significant. So, I mean, premature to get into that conversation, the economics of it, but I mean, that is, in my opinion, from a development standpoint, and again, why I encourage you to all come on the 22nd is that, the market cannot sustain 30% commercial at this point. We will have vacant space there. Just anecdotally, I had a conversation with Federal Realty today. They have a successful project in Somerville. Unfortunately, 2 of their tenants are Bed Bath & Beyond and Christmas Tree Shop. They've lost both of those tenants in the last 2 months. So, I mean, there's a change in what the retail environment is. We will learn more about that on the 22nd. But again, this purpose of this meeting tonight was conceptually for you to tell Edgewood, yes, let's refine this revised plan a little bit more. That doesn't take conversation or concerns with what the rear building is off the table. It's just so we can keep this process moving forward.
Well, I guess the purpose would be really to tell them yes or no if it works or not. So, I mean, they're getting a bit of both. I think there's a solid core for a project here. I think they've made some great additions already, some great changes. And I'm excited to see what we can do going forwards. And I think the workforce housing point is absolutely heard and understood. That would be a big boon. So I'm excited to see what we can get done here.
Great, and I'd hope that maybe, and he doesn't have to answer, but maybe Bob, or they don't have to answer, Bob and Shane, we can put together a package of from the economic standpoint, both our economics and the town's economics and the community's economics and your vision and the town council's vision, put together sort of a package of what those enhancements would look like, from which categories we choose, and maybe some more specifics. So something that both the town and us, we could agree to, so that the board can then say, yeah, that looks like it's a positive thing, and that the project will be have a positive impact, Mr. McDonald, as you said, on the town.
Absolutely.
Steve, I've got my list.
Oh, good.
And I'm happy to work as well with this project. I did provide a memo over to the board as well, and I forwarded that along to the applicant as well. So what my kind of focusing on this memo is compliance, as well as we want to make sure that these projects through site plan review, special permitting for the mixed use and the CBD comply with the design standards. So one of my quick notes is that based on these changes, there is a lot more progress in terms of complying with our design standards, albeit there's a lot more when it comes to renderings, when it comes to windows and design of awnings, et cetera, that we don't have visually in front of us, as well as some other site plan things that will change based on the initial plans. But to the board's point too, that there is language regarding town center and village center regarding this in our design standards. However, that is primarily for bringing commercial to abutting the street and allowing for residential to occur in the rear. So that our design standards do speak of that, but that's primarily allowing for a mimic of design abutting the roadway and for that allowance of that residential in the rear on there. So I just want to note that with the board as well as other design standards I've noted in my my memo packet. It'll change as we get more information, but I'm happy to answer any questions regarding compliance of standards and site plan review questions now and proceeding as well.
And thanks, Shane. I think it's an important point that maybe I didn't make well enough is that part of the reason that we did move that back building back over 300 feet and the impact of that being back so far is that although it is within the zoning district of CBD, it's not the traditional street line CBD that you see up and down the entire street. It's a little different. And I guess what I'm saying is maybe it should be treated a little bit differently. And the impact on that is that commercial ratio. People aren't going to want to drive all the way back there to go to commercial spaces.
Sure, and I think that was the intention of the ordinance.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Jim.
if I may comment before I go to.
Yeah, of course. I think we'll,
Public input.
yep,
I
we'll wrap
just
up
want to
before
make
the
one
staff
comment
comments.
about the discussion about commercial, that the commercial environment has to be taken into account. I understand that. I'm not definitely saying no, but I just want to make a point that commercial environment changes. And if you simply plan something based on commercial needs this particular time period, you end up with something that you may not want in the future. So I just, as much as it's important to think about it, I just don't want it to look upon it as the way we decide on what the ratio is and so forth. That's all. Thank you.
Excellent point. Anything else from the board or staff before we open to public commentary?
Could you maybe you should get rid of the screen?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that. Yep.
Okay, I think we're ready for public commentary then. Anyone with their hands raised?
Yeah, if you raise your virtual hand or say that you'd like to speak in the chat, I'm happy to allow for it. We have one hand raised, Mr. Chair, and that is Carlton Hunt.
Think he knows the drill by now?
Yeah, good evening. I at a conceptual level, I think we're making progress. I think this is far better than what we've seen in the past. I'm going to speak to you as the chair of the Energy Committee. I didn't hear much about energy efficiency. You may be a step away from that, but I just wanted to put some things on the table in terms of concern. We are a green community. Because of that, we have to adhere to the special code that was just updated. I am in the process of setting up a meeting with the town council, the Energy Committee, and representatives from the CED department to discuss potential adoption of what's called the specialized code. The town council has to adopt it if they want to by the end of this year, and that will change a little bit about on how energy efficient these buildings need to be. But right now we are stretch code in that case. But I wanted to also point to getting a better understanding of where you guys are in terms of energy efficiency. We have an incredible model apartment building in Bridgewater that followed, it's called PFUIS. It's an international standard, and they followed that for energy efficiency. The HERS rating on their building is 22. It's very low. So I'm thinking two things. You guys considering our code that we have now, but also thinking ahead to the future. The town managers indicated we want to get to net zero carbon as a town in the next 15 to 20 years. So this project goes into that also. But the other thing is, I haven't heard yet anything about EV charging stations. And the last thing I'll say is for consideration is those parking lots, I don't know what the acreage is, but they're large. I would think that you might be considering solarization of those parking lots because you can also provide that energy directly to your apartments and commercial there if you do that. So those are my comments in terms of energy. It's basically maximize the energy efficiency and the production if we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I believe I forgot to mention at the start, before anyone speaks, please do remember to state your name and address as well. Thank you.
Well, it's Carlton Hunt at 80 Austin Street. Sorry.
Oh, nope, that was my bad. Should have caught it. Thank you. Anyone else, Mr. O'Brien?
I do not see anyone currently with their virtual hands raised as well. I just also want to note that Dr. Hunt did provide the staff and the board comments regarding this property from the last meeting as well. So those are on the records as well. But I don't currently see anyone in the chat and I don't see any virtual hands raised either, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so to the best of my understanding, given that this is more of an informational meeting, how should we best proceed here? Does the applicant want a continuation with the information they've provided, or?
You're gonna have to continue it. I mean, you're not.
Yes, yeah, I
not in
just
a position
wanted to
take
make
any-
sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I had the phrasing on that correctly.
Yep. So there would be a motion to continue the public hearing.
And how far out would you like to go, Mr. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Mr. Bitzer?
I think we probably should go at least a month. I don't know what your meeting schedule is, but there's only so much we can do in a short period of time, especially during the summer. So maybe, Shane, do you know what the meeting schedule is?
Yeah, and sticking with the board's rule of thumb in terms of not having it at the same meeting as Claremont. We have a meeting on August 16th that Claremont is attending. However, we do have a September 6th meeting, which would be a month from now, that this may be appropriate to have on for.
Yeah, I think I would request that we put it on for September 6th. If we're not able to make any significant progress, like we did for the June meeting, we can ask for a continuance ahead of time. But hopefully we will be able to make some good progress between now and then and have something for the board.
As well as I'll reach out to Steve, and if we can coordinate, if anyone would like to do a tour of
Absolutely.
the Walpole building, we'll just reiterate that. And if we have a quorum similar to our site visit on Friday, we can schedule a time with either individual board members or a group visit to a site.
Mr. Chairman, wouldn't it be better, since the size of this project and how involved it is, that we go to the second meeting in September instead of the first?
My concern there would be if the hotel gets knocked back another month or so, which I think is probably a real possibility, then we might wind up with an overlap.
Well,
that
no, I
meeting.
don't want an overlap. I'm just saying, maybe maybe, I don't know, maybe we're rushing this just a wee bit. Just my thought.
I think that's certainly a fair thing to bring up. Any other board thoughts on that? The timing of the next one?
I think as to Mr. Metzger's point is that, they have the right to have this continue to go forward. If they feel they're not in a position to go forward, they can request that it be continued. Don't know what's going to happen with Claremont and don't know what's going to happen with other intervening applications. So I think this has worked to date in terms of communication between the applicant and staff as to schedule. So I think, a motion to continue it to the September meeting, if we have to amend that, we might know that by the 16th or sometime before that.
And I will be very, very mindful of not wasting the board's time. I sit on a board in my town, and I understand how frustrating that can be. So I'm not going to waste your time. If I don't have something good for you on September 6th, then I won't waste your time.
Okay, any other board thoughts?
All right, I'll make a motion. We continue this to September 6th, 6:30.
Do we have a second?
I can second it.
All righty. Any further discussion? Mr. Ajemian,
Yes.
Ms. Pagone,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes,
Mr. Geller,
Yes, but I will let you know that I will not be able to attend the meeting on the 6th.
Fortunately, Mr. Haley is here, so he can fill in.
Correct.
okay, and I'm a yes. All right. So I believe we can tag Pat back in now.
Yep. I let the chair know that he is.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's good to see everybody. We'll see you in a
Thank
month.
you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Night.
All right.
Bring up the next item just in case Pat doesn't get back to us soon.
I think he is.
Yep.
He's there. I just need to see his face. Mr. Pat said 2 minutes.
Do we want to continue on or take a quick 2-minute recess?
I guess we can take a quick 2-minute recess or just sit here silently for 2 minutes.
Is there, can we do other business while we're waiting? Is like that be like minutes or something?
I think we can I can give a quick, if you want to take other business out of order, I can discuss kind of the site visit on Friday.
Sure.
Actually, no, Pat's gonna be there.
Oh, right.
I think we wait. I think
Okay.
Pat'll come quickly.
Sounds good.
So
You want to sing for us, Shane?
what do you all prefer?
No. Nothing.
I got to listen to some jazz music. I'm going to Jazz Fest this weekend, so trying to get some jazz in my head.
Michael? You there?
Yeah. Yep. What can I do
You
for
did
you,
a
Ray?
Nice job, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It's
No, you did great. Thank you.
not often I have to do it, but we have great staff to rely on, so that helps a lot too. And
Well, we have
obviously
a
Ray's
great
experience.
board to rely on as well. So
All
can't do
right.
without you guys. There he is.
Well done. I think I just sitting there sleeping for an hour. I went downstairs and did another meeting, so I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No worries.
All right, so Michael, did you open up 31 Perkins Street yet?
No, did not open it yet. Wasn't sure that'd work if you came in halfway.
No problem. So thanks for taking the first one.
Yep.
You guys, I'll open it up now. I'll get my headset back on. All right, so item 2 on the agenda is 31 Perkins Street. This is map 21, lot 141. It's a proposed self-storage facility for storage Cap Bridgewater LP, site plan review. Approval pursuant to section 10.6, and this was continued from from July 19th, 2023, not May, July.
Sorry.
So with that being said, I'll turn it over to the applicant, and then the board can ask questions and comments, and then we can open up for public comment. So if the applicant is with us and would like to give us an update on the project, I'll turn it over to them now, Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you. Doug Troyer from Pierce Atwood on behalf of the applicant, StoreCap Bridgewater, who's the owner of the property, operating as a store space. Dan Bailey, my office, was present before you last time. I'm kind of pitch hitting for him. He had knee surgery on Monday, but I have the pleasure to be before you guys tonight. As you know, we had a hearing on the first hearing on July 19th, went over in pretty much full detail the project, which is in essence looking to raise the existing structure and construct a 4-story self-storage facility on the property. With me tonight is Sabrina Bernaldi, who is the project manager for StoreSpace, who went over in detail the operational aspects and certain details of the project. Also with us tonight is Greg Driscoll from CDE Civil. He's the project engineer. And I believe where things left off last time was we received a comment letter from your town engineer. We've now had an opportunity to review that and provide a response, as well as update some of the site plans. Those were submitted to the board for its review last week. And I think it probably makes sense to turn it over to Greg, and let him kind of go over our response, answer some of the questions that the board raised at the last hearing, as well as provide our responses to the comments and go from there. Greg?
Hey, evening, everyone. Greg Driscoll, JDE Civil. So just go through our response to comments letter from Mr. Tanzi. I will share my screen. All right, here's the plan set on sheet 1. Mr. Tanzi had a comment about the sheet index. We fixed that. We added the lighting and photometrics plan to the plan set. So it's sheet 12 now of the plan set. Sheet 2, the survey. First comments was about no water mains being shown in Perkins Street. So they pulled the record information, talked to the water department, and added the water line in. And the benchmark, which is this hydrant right here, so it appeared to be connected to the gas line. It just wasn't extended all the way to where the water line is. So now it's connected and shown properly. Moving on to sheet 3. It's a demolition plan. Tanzi's comment was regarding protective measures that the demolition crews must follow to ensure railroad track and associated infrastructure will be protected from damage during demolition work. We added a note into the plan regarding that the contractor will be responsible for following the requirements of MBTA demolition extraction licenses. Once those are issued by the MBTA, once we get the local approvals, then we can go to the MBTA to get their licenses for the work within 30 feet and in the right of way to the MBTA. And I'm sure that they will have their own requirements and protocols for us to follow as well. And we'll follow all those procedures. Cementation barriers we use to protect the drainage swale running parallel with the tracks, so that added more sedimentation erosion control along here. This is part of a swale that starts at the edge of the road. So we added more sedimentation controls there. We bumped these out a bit here to get outside where the existing building is. The existing building, as I think we highlighted previously, is over the property line in a couple of spots by a little bit. So we'll be correcting that when we remove and demo the building. And we'll have proper sedimentation controls in place. Comment number 3 on the sheet. Demo plan should coordinate operations with the Board of Health and Animal Control departments. That is now note 11 on the sheet. So we added that in there for the contractor to be aware of. Moving on to sheet 4 of the plan sets. Loading zone should identify loading spaces for vehicles to occupy to ensure that vehicles can utilize the loading zone at once. Several vehicles can utilize the loading zone at once. So we added showing several vehicles parked in the loading zone here. We have a moving truck, a pickup truck with a trailer, a car, a van. And we pulled some of the info for the trailer and moving truck from U-Haul's website. Loading spaces in the loading zone must accommodate vehicles with moving trailers such as U-Haul, so. I think it's like 130 feet long, this loading space right here, so there's plenty of space. Then we have the 8-foot wide flush sidewalk. And then this is the doors for access for customers to get in and out to their storage units. Comment number 3. Mr. Tanzi can not find on the plan where we have the R51 do not enter signs. So this is the legend. That's the sign he was looking for, and we added call outs to show where those are right here and here. And this right here is also a one-way sign going in that direction. Comment number 4 for the sheet, Massachusetts ADA regulations require 1 van accessible space, which requires an aisle width of 8 feet, not 5. So we reconfigured the parking here to get an 8-foot space next to the van accessible space. And the application should justify that the proposed 8 parking spaces will accommodate the facility. Store Space has many of these facilities throughout the country, and this is adequate parking that they found they need for their facilities. Anytime you go by one of these self-storage facilities, there's usually not that many cars out front. One for an employee, maybe customers coming in to rent a storage unit, but for the most part, customers will pull up to the loading zone, take their materials out, put them in their storage unit and move along. So not a lot of people at the facility all day except for the full-time employee. Anything to add to that, Sabrina? I mean, for the most part, there's not a lot of parking that you guys require.
Good afternoon. No, nothing else to add. I would say that self-storage is by history a low traffic generator. The best of the storage business goes, the less amount of customers we're going to have, because our goal is that they remain that their belongings remain on the property for at least a year. So we expect to have sporadic visits just whenever they want to access to their items, but not further than that.
Thank you. Comment number 6, site benchmark appears to be water bolt of a hydrant. However, no hydrant is shown. The layer for this hydrant was turned off on the original plan set, so we fixed that issue. So drafting issue. Comment 7, appears access to the rear concrete ramp located in the northwest corner of the Demco building may have been restricted by small roads. So we're outside of the access easement, but yeah, the new corner of the building is a little bit closer to this ramp right here. But shouldn't be the access easement, which we are showing now in color on the plan, just to highlight.
Yeah, and for the board's information, this area we can talk about a little bit further, but I think it makes sense for Greg to kind of continue through the comments, and if we need to come back to this, we can. Number 8.
Number 8, the applicant is proposing precast concrete curbing along the gutter lines of Perkins and Pearl Streets. So we revised this to be vertical granite curb along the street side, and on the inside of the property, we have Cape Cod berm along here, and then precast concrete along here. It's monolithic with the sidewalk here, and Cape Cod berm over this way.
Greg, before we go into too in depth on the stormwater management information, I know that Greg Tanzi hasn't had the opportunity to review your response to comments yet.
Okay.
So I think in terms of looking at the rest of the comments, I think maybe focusing on landscaping and lighting as well as some of the ADA improvements. And then I think I can address some of the stormwater questions, and I've kind of let the board be aware through the memo that we haven't received a response from Mr. Tanzi yet. So if you can speak onto those items, apologies to interrupting.
So Shane, just, you don't want to walk, you don't think it's beneficial to walk through the whole? I mean, a lot of my questions related to the memo. I mean, if we want to stay away from stormwater, that's fine, but anything not related to stormwater?
I just don't want to get into the thick of the weeds in terms of, you know, best management practices in terms of size of pipes and size of drains when.
Yeah, but all right, but I think.
But no,
anything-
there's still items I believe in Mr. Tanzi's memo that I think we can touch upon, and then are
So why don't we continue with the memo
Sure.
just as we are, and then Mr. Tanzi can review it later, because we could get to a point where, you know, we could just continue this to the next meeting and hope that these things are worked out by then. So if we could just continue through the letter, I think that'd be helpful.
sure thing.
And move on to sheet 5. So the contact jellyfish, that's what this proprietary treatment device is right here. Mr. Tanzi, we originally had it connecting into this catch basin here. Mr. Tanzi requested that we put a new manhole in just downstream of that catch basin, so that's how we've redesigned it. More information on this pipe here. We've survey researched that with the city or the town. We believe it ties in right here with this drain manhole, but we couldn't find any record plans on it. Where this pipe in this new structure is so close to the existing structure that we're going to have the contractor, once he digs it up, verify the inverts and adjust accordingly. But we do know what the invert is coming out of this right here, and that this connection was designed to work. So going downstream here, it's only going to be, the invert's only going to be lower. So two flared end sections from the roof drains. So we've redesigned this area. There was a couple of roof drain pipes coming out into the right of way previously on the previous plan set with flared end sections and riprap. This whole area back here is all gravel and riprap. And this area that's we're now showing as riprap is the area where the building used to be. So we're going to fill that in with riprap and do what the previous building, the existing building right now, just has downspouts discharging right to the ground. So we'll do the same thing, and we'll have all the riprap and stone in here for erosion and sedimentation protection. So that way we're able to keep our downspouts on our property, but flowing in the same direction as the existing building. We added this retaining wall along here to solve a grading issue, and added timber guardrails on either side of the transformer. We added the diameter and pipe material for the pipes on the plan. And then moving on to sheet 6. Per our discussion at the last meeting and Shane's memo, we added street trees in this landscape area here. I also fixed, I thought we fixed the bench market here. Okay. Wall pack lights should be called out on the plans to build 8. If that's shown here. These are what the wall pack lights symbols look like. Applicant should verify and state on the plan should state that the proposed lighting plan is dark sky compliant. And we have added that note onto this plan. That was also included in the cut sheet for the light fixtures that was submitted with the original submittal. Color temperatures of these light fixtures should be indicated on the plan. We've added that in here. We're using a neutral color. Proposed parking street light models. These right here, which we called out. So we've done that. And the height of the mast height of the poles has been added as well. And that is it for the landscaping plan. And going on to the details, we added a dewatering detail onto this sheet. No comments on sheet 8. Sheet 9. Actually ended up on sheet 8, the vertical granite curb detail. Sheet 10, we had 2 of these test bits labeled as test bit 1, so that's corrected now. And that's it. Then it gets into the drainage report, which we can skip now, or I can go over if you like.
Well, I think the drainage report itself, I mean, if you just want to hit the highlights on any changes you made from the last meeting, and then we can allow Mr. Tanzi to review it.
Sure. So we went out and actually went out with some water jugs and figured out that this little berm along here that Mr. Tanzi pointed out does in fact direct the water from this parking lot along here and bypasses this. So this is all one drainage point right now. Redesigning this one drainage point of study. And this is the proposed, all going to the same drainage point. So we're maintaining the flow pattern as it currently is. And let's see what else. That was the pretty much the big comment that he made and that we corrected regarding the watersheds. And standard 7 for stormwater management is redevelopment. So this is a redevelopment project. So we are applying to the standards to the extent practicable. And standard 8, we do have erosion controls shown. And he also mentions the check dams here as well, which I mentioned earlier on, I think, the demo sheet, demo erosion control sheet. Yeah, that's what it's.
Hey, Greg, just for my clarification, on the stormwater, was there many modifications or many comments to which there's any open areas in particular?
How do you mean?
I don't know. Is there any? It seemed like I was looking through the comments. It looked like the majority of the stormwater, it appeared that we had basically indicated that we have complied with what he was looking to do. And
Yeah,
Sean,
so after making the revisions on the design point, that was the only real comment that he had. So we've addressed that. I think we're good. He'll have to
Shane-
actually review it and
yeah.
concur,
so I
but
understand. So Shane, it looks like we'll need him to take a peek at it before we can proceed to getting a final decision on whether or not we've addressed those concerns to his satisfaction.
Shane?
I can't speak on behalf of Greg, but just that, but I think Greg just got, in terms of just the timing of everything, he is looking to do one more, I think, final review just to wrap everything up. And I guess my recommendation to the board was allow this project to look towards the next meeting, as well as allow me to draft a decision, because it seems that we're moving in a positive direction for this project.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I just, couple of questions. Are there any architectural revisions? I know we talked about the internally lit signs and not having those on the building, but rather having backlit. I know we talked about some potential changes in the lobby area regarding historical significance comments. I know we had the tree comment, which appears to be addressed, the vertical granite I had on the list that's addressed. And then the, just I guess outside of the architectural, you said you could touch back on that access easement and how that, and I guess in your memo, I don't have your memo in front of me, but you had an explanation for that access easement, and you mentioned a wall that's 1.5 feet, and I think it was 13.5 versus 2.7. Can you explain that answer and those numbers in regards to that access easement, just to make sure that the applicant, the abutting property can still properly access their property?
Yeah, I'll take that. That's okay, Greg.
Sure.
And actually, can I share my screen?
Yes.
Wait. So to talk about, I think to bring it clear, my understanding is that the abutter that's issued a concern, I believe, is 27 Perkins Street, which is Dimco Enterprises, which is this property over here. This is us at 31 Perkins Street. It's our position that there's no hardship to this abutter whatsoever. In fact, Dimco Enterprises owned both of these properties prior to my client's purchase of this property. And in fact, in February of 2021, in probably preparations of selling 31 Perkins, Dimco Enterprises basically, in essence, gave itself its own little easement. So they basically put an easement on the property for this area that's highlighted. It's about 5,181 square feet. The access road in this area is a 20-foot easement area in here, and then it basically expands into this area up here. Hopefully you can see my little circle. Basically that was recorded in around February of 21, and within the easement that he granted, in essence, to himself at that time, he put restrictions on that easement that no building, structure, fence, barrier, or other improvements or obstructions could be located within that easement area. Basically prohibited parking in the easement area except for live parking, and prohibited storage of materials in the easement area. Subsequent to that, that easement being recorded with the Registry of Deeds, I believe communications about the potential sale of the property to my clients occurred. And in 2000, and basically in August of 2021, when my client purchased the property, that original easement got amended and a lot of those restrictions got taken away. In essence, the easement was amended around the same time that Store Space bought the property. The amended easement actually gives Store Space the right to maintain, repair, and replace all improvements within the easement area, including the chimney, the metal fire escape, the staircase, the metal steps, the concrete retaining walls, and those two metal walkway overhangs. The amended easement also gives Store Space the right to construct improvements in the easement area. This was negotiated with the abutter and basically in connection with the purchase and sale of the property. As you recall from the earlier easement, there was no permission to park whether live or otherwise within the easement area. This is the new easement area, which is in dotted lines here. It's the same 5,181 square feet. It's a 10-foot easement area in this area. This is 10 feet on this side. There was basically no reservations on Store Space to basically have any setback requirements other than what the zoning bylaws would permit. there was basically the abutter agreed to these terms and ultimately was aware that Store Space was looking to either rehabilitate this building or basically look to potentially raise and rebuild this. There was no reservation of rights to even park in this area anymore, as was the original amendment to it. So in essence, that easement agreement was recorded with the Registry of Deeds. The property was sold, and in essence, there's no parking or there could be no parking. There can be no live or transparent parking in this area whatsoever. And unfortunately, access in this area would be a trespass of the easement agreement, in which the abutter, who is now complaining about the potential ability to get in and out of here, would not be able to do. Fortunately, though, access to and from the one-way street, he still does have the ability to get in here. But normally, when he owned both properties, he would basically access into this area. Unfortunately, now, pursuant to the agreement that he entered into with us, he didn't reserve a right to do this. And unfortunately, who knows if he was thinking of doing something different with the building. I don't believe that this area is actually being utilized at this point. Additionally, give me a second. I had it set up, but didn't pop up. I apologize. Additionally, he has another loading bay on the other side where he has access to this facility as well. Additionally, another photograph of the area. This is the area in question of the 20-foot easement area. And basically, as this is angled in this way, it's unknown as to whether or not he is utilizing this or what the hardship would be. But at the end of the day, there was no reservation for him to basically maintain that, whereas he was aware of it because he originally granted to himself easement rights to protect against that interest, but in connection with selling the property to my client, that was no longer in there. Additionally, my client had to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals because of certain pre-existing non-conforming setback issues. We obtained a decision from the Zoning Board of Appeals in around June of this year, and no appeal was rendered by the abutter in connection with that, which is arguably the more appropriate board to basically appeal that decision on the setbacks, in which we basically obtained a pre-existing non-conforming finding based on these plans. It's our position that there's no hardship. He still has the ability to basically utilize and get in and out of there. There's no demonstration from him that he can't. It's our understanding he has another loading bay, which he has access to. And unfortunately, he agreed and entered into an agreement with us that he would not be reserving any rights to basically continue to do the maneuver that he was able to do when he owned both properties. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Well, that was a good explanation. Thank you.
Pat,
Yeah.
also another
Ju-
note to
Shane, could I just ask
Sure.
why the attorney's still? So one of the questions we asked the last meeting, just looking at my notes, was, Mr. Driscoll, maybe you can answer it. Line of sight. So just where that building's being pulled out further, and you're going to have vehicles entering and exiting that alleyway now with that building pulled out. Do we feel it's a safe line of sight, and do we demonstrate that a fire truck could adequately get down there and if needed to, emergency vehicles and line of sight's okay? Has that been determined?
Yeah, it's a, I can share my screen again. I submitted a plan showing an ambulance.
All right, I didn't see
on
that.
in
I
and turn it
apologize.
around. It was separate from the plan set. Here it is. So this is, Perkins Street is one way flowing this way. So line of sight would be needed from this direction for traffic. So we show that the ambulance can pull in, turn around and come back out. And it clears the loading dock here and clears the building. So, and I did have another one. I don't think I saved it, but a fire truck can pull down this way. It's wide enough for a fire truck to get in there. But they would have to back out.
Okay, all right.
Truck wouldn't fit. as far
Yeah,
as doing this type of maneuver, but
It's no different than existing conditions, unfortunately.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't see that. I don't, so, thank you.
yeah, no problem.
And then, I just had questions on the, we started on the architectural.
Okay.
A little bit, the sign that's shown there, I believe. We were talking about having backlit signage as opposed to, the light is lit up. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe that was discussed last time, and we were happy. I think it was indicated that we are happy to work with the town on compliance with backlight versus the internal light of the sign. So if you want to put condition to that, that's something which we're happy to.
And the colors, I mean, the color palette that's shown, I believe is fine, but that's, are the colors called out specifically somewhere on the plan set?
It will be on the architectural plan set.
Okay.
I don't know that we.
I believe the side elevations calls out the material.
Oh, yeah.
That was from the original submittal right there.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, there we go.
Metal panels, wood panel, yep.
Yeah, I know those are types of materials, but the actual colors, I think we were gonna add, correct?
I mean, that would be part of the
Final
permit
plans.
submittal, I believe.
Okay. All right, those are my questions. Any other board questions at this point? Board questions for the applicant?
I'm good.
Anybody else?
Oh, I'm good.
And I see, any other, and I already checked this with Shane this week, but and Mr. Jemian might be interested in this, but the street plantings proposed a river birch. So,
I'm sorry, I missed that, Mr. Chair.
I just wanted to we have a member of the tree committee on, and I just wanted to point out to Mr. Jemian that the 5 street trees proposed a river birch. So. All right, any other board questions? If not, do we have any public comment at this point? Any members of the public who wish to speak on this project at this point?
Let me check the gallery and if anyone in the chat would like to speak on behalf of this project.
I don't see anybody.
I don't see anyone in the chat, nor do I see anyone raising their virtual hand.
Okay, so Shane, based on what we have now, I think the plan is we'd have Mr. Tanzi do a final review. You'll take into consideration some of these comments this evening and other comments from past meetings and draft a decision letter that we can review and discuss at our next meeting.
That would be correct, yes.
Okay, and do we want to put this on for our next meeting, which is August
August 16th.
16th?
I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
That would be great for us. And completely understand. So yeah, August 16th would be great.
Okay,
If I
so
may, Mr. Driscoll. I mean,
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead, go-
I
go.
just if possible, I'd like to run the tree proposal, the river birch by the committee and get back to you on that by next week.
on the street trees.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can I interrupt? I apologize. I don't want to get into a situation where we don't have anything confirmed yet. What I did state to Mr. Driscoll is that the following street trees are currently appropriate based on our subdivision rules and regulations. I know we've had conversations in the past in terms of particular pear trees to not be included, but based on our current subdivision rules and regulations, we do allow for river birch to be considered as street trees within subdivision rules and regulations.
But Mr. Jemian, if you want to,
yeah,
I mean,
I'll still get back to you just to be sure.
yeah, I don't think that's going to hold anything up if we,
No, I won't hold anything.
if there's some compelling reason to discuss with the applicant to change a tree type, that's an easy correction and a decision.
We'll work that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there would be some sort of publicly available street tree list that the tree committee has made available
There is one, but it hasn't been voted on yet by this planning board.
All right, could you provide that to us, Ray, at some point?
Thought I did, but I will do it again.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, but we can still move forward with the
Yeah,
draft
I just-
decision letter. And
Of course, yes.
any other public comment or board comment before we take a motion to continue to August 16th? If there's no other comment, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to continue until August 16th.
So motion by Mr. Jemian. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second.
Second by Mr. McDonald. Any discussion? Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes,
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Jemian,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. And I don't know if we made that clear, but that's August 16th at 6:30 PM.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, board. Hope you all have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, let me go back up. So Shane, I know the next item on our agenda, 385 North Street. I'll open that public hearing now. So the third public hearing we have this evening is 385 North Street, also known as Old Stable Estates, map 32, lot 9. This is a proposed 3-lot definitive subdivision pursuant to the Planning Board subdivision rules and regulations. This is continued from July 19th, 2023. I believe the applicant is here. I believe we just received these plans because they're not even on our plan set, but they are, Mr. O'Brien, I found, as you indicated, I found them on the town website.
Correct.
So I know there's been no time for staff to review these plans, but perhaps the applicant could, and I know we had test pits scheduled out there for a week ago Friday, I believe, or a couple of weeks ago Friday. So perhaps we could turn it over to the applicant to provide us an update. We can then have Mr. Tansey review it after we have the update this evening and public comment, board comment, and then continue that to a future meeting if that's the will of the board. So I will turn it over to the applicant now. I believe Mr. Silver and his office are here, so take it away.
Good evening. Larry Silva from Silver Engineering Associates. Rebecca Baptista is also with me here this evening. At the last meeting, we discussed the initial comments from Mr. Tansey, and we scheduled test pits with him out on the site. And so what we found in doing that was that the soils that we had looked at before that were near the driveway entrance, the back entrance of the high school, along that stretch is where we had most of the drainage laid out for that area. Those soils were still, even the other test pits, a couple were okay, but most of them were marginal in terms of the types of soils. We went back over to the area along the road coming in, the proposed road, and we found, surprisingly, that the soils there were very favorable. So what that allowed us to do was to revise the design to be more in accordance with the standards for these types of subdivisions. And so as you can see on here, the drainage is adjacent to the actual roadway coming in, and it's in keeping with the design standards for subdivisions of 1 to 4 lots. I'm trying not to go through point by point all the comments, only because there were like 50 separate comments, and I'm looking at a board that's looking kind of tired. So what I was thinking is I just stay with the ones with kind of the 30,000 square foot kind of overview. So we made revisions to the drainage itself, and that also allowed for us to maintain the buffer zone, the tree buffer, which we were going to have to remove some significant trees along that driveway side there next to the high school driveway. And so now we can keep that tree buffer, and it's much better in that way. There was a question that had come up regarding the use of names or proper names or whatever, and I just wanted for the board's knowledge that Fontana Way is Fontana is fountain in Italian, and that's really not suggested. We don't believe that that's a violation of the name of the street itself. So we would like to keep it Fontana Way if the board allows us to. There is a requirement for, and there was some comments made about planting trees. As you can see, because the drainage kind of occupies the area within the right of way, we're not adverse, my client is not adverse to doing street trees, but they would have to be planted adjacent to the right of way on the individual lots, on lots 1 and 3. And if that's okay, that's how we would show it. But we didn't want to show it on here until we had that discussion with the board. So we would do along the straight section of the roadway itself on an interval of 40 feet, which is what your regulation shows. And if that's okay, that's what we would illustrate on the final plan set. So Rebecca's drawing some beautiful trees there. One went over the property line at one point there, but she brought it back. So I'm thinking maybe like 5 trees on, maybe a total of 10 trees at most, maybe 8 might be, because there are a lot of existing trees on this site, which are pretty, some of them are pretty majestic. And I think that those will basically be in keeping with what you'd like to see is a nicely treed lot. But we don't want to get excessive because there's only a 3-lot subdivision too. Now, the other item was question raised about the looping of water, which is really a water department issue, but I know you guys get involved in it. And so what we're trying to do is to loop the water by bringing it in and then bringing it across over to the high school driveway, because they have a significant line that goes down that stretch, and it would be a great place to do it. But my client is in the process of securing that easement. If he is unable to secure that easement, then we would have to satisfy the water department by looping it back within Fontana Way up and down, which is kind of, to me, it's not really through looping, but that's what they ask for when you can't bring it to some other location. So either way, we would satisfy the water department's requirements as it relates to the water service. Aside from that, the other comments are all detailed in our letter of July 31st. We show the actual comment, and we show the answer to the comment for both the board to review and for staff and to also weigh in on it. We believe that we actually, my client was hoping that maybe he would get to the point where he would be able to get an approval tonight with just a concurrence that Mr. Tanzi was satisfied with all the other items. But I'm sensing that that's not the direction that the board wants to go. But that's what we're requesting, that possibly be how we approach it, because these meetings are kind of getting to the point where there's multiple meetings on each one of these, which is the way it goes sometimes. With that, I'd answer whatever questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Silva, for the update. I'm fine with I'd like to see the street trees, because we've been requiring it at all these, 1 to 4 lot subdivisions. It's all private anyway. If some of them are out of the layout, my opinion is that's fine, but if we can meet the requirement for the street trees and the landscape requirement, that would be good. I think it's important that we do have Greg's review of the drainage and everything, because there could be substantial changes based on his review. Hopefully not, but there could be. And that's about it. So any board questions based on Mr. Silva's update at this point?
No, I don't have any, but I think it was a good update. I just, I would wait to Mr. Tanzi's review. Like, I wouldn't vote tonight.
As a member of the tree committee, are you all right with some of the trees outside of the layout?
What do you mean outside the layout? Which ones you talking about?
Well, Mr. Silva can't design all the trees within the 40-foot layout in the cul-de-sac, so
I
but you,
understand that. Yeah,
he-
no,
he-
I have no problem with that. I think, you know, you can't be strict on all regulations. I mean, it's a small subdivision, and if you put in a few trees, I think that's important. I don't have a problem with that.
all right.
Just to jump in on that too, yeah, in terms of some street trees, the jurisdictions under our street trees within our subdivision rules and regulations, but I have no issue looking in the future, and I think we noted this in terms of some of the when we last discussed trees before the board, that the requirements of one new shade tree per lot, I'm fine with any type of shade tree that's appropriate from a committee and the tree committee's list.
But that's in addition to the street trees, Shane.
Yeah, that's correct. They current with our subdivision rules and regulations, it's a shade tree per lot and street trees, which we have a list of the particulars on the street trees.
Okay. All right. And then, but if they're not clearing the entire lot, they're leaving quite a bit, I would assume that would satisfy the shade tree per lot.
Yeah, I would just make sure that we note that in terms of our decision making.
Okay. All right. Any other board comments at this point? All right, if there are none, I'll open it up to the public. Are there any public comments or questions on this project at this point?
I don't see any hands raised at this time, nor do I see anybody in the chat asking to speak.
All right, so we're waiting for Mr. Geller. What's on the agenda for August 16th, other than what we just continued, Mr. O'Brien?
We'd be looking at 31 Perkins, a Claremont property. We do have a minor modification that I will be letting the board be aware about. But I don't see that taking too much time, so I don't see an issue with this item being on for the 16th.
Do we have any other discussion about putting this on for August 16th?
Fine with me.
Do we have a motion to continue this to August 16th at 6:30?
So moved.
By Mr. McDonald, do we have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Geller? Any discussion?
I just want to make one comment. I want to give thanks to Mr. Silva for thinking of the planning board in terms of time constraints and how tired we may be. We usually don't have comments like that, but that's important. I appreciate that.
As you know, Ray, we did some meetings that used to go to 1 in the morning.
No, it was 11, I think. You're exaggerating now.
No, there were some that actually went to 1 in the morning. We actually questioned whether or not
You never
it
get
still
me.
constituted
All
a
right,
meeting. on that
all
day.
right, we have a motion and a second, and I think Mr. Silva is the one that's tired, so. Ms. Rojas,
I say yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Jemian,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you, Mr. Silva. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right, moving on. Go back to my agenda. So we're done with public hearings. We'll go to item 3 on the agenda, board business, other business. We have the May 3rd, 2023 meeting minutes. If everybody's read them, do we have a motion to approve or any corrections or any type of motions on these? Motion to approve by somebody,
I can motion to approve.
by Ms. Rojas. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Mr. McDonald, any discussion? Mr. Jemian,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
yes. Board items for next meeting, Mr. O'Brien.
So we had two continuances for the 16th, as well as we have Claremont. We do have forthcoming a very minor modification, but I felt it was appropriate to bring before the board for 210 Broad Street regarding curbing there. So that project is progressing. Mr. Chair, we also have actually, I'll do that in part of the planner's report. So do you want me to just ease into planner's report?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
fine.
Go ahead, yeah.
So I do have the, if you can come by sometime this week, I do have the endorsed plans for Winter Street as well as Cranmore Estates decision ready.
Yeah, I'll come by tomorrow for those.
Okay, as well as noted on the town's agenda, we do have the site visit on Friday at noon for Claremont.
For
So
those, Shane, for those that are going to attend and the board, there is a meeting spot, and could you just describe where that is?
so there's a parking lot adjacent, so it's One Lakeshore Center. So you drive into the Lakeshore Center, there's a parking area, you know, closer to the first office building. So we'll park over there. So don't park at the park and ride, park over in that area. We will, I guess, walk to the park and ride, but to explore the site. But yeah, please park over there, and then we'll meet over there. Start around noontime, and we'll go from there. I believe there'll be some representatives from Claremont there to be showing the site, but I just want to make sure that the board is aware and clear that we're not deliberating on site or asking, or, making this part of this public hearing process. So I just want to make note to the board. I know that you guys are completely aware, but I just like to reiterate things.
And you'll have, just so we're not walking around aimlessly and we can be efficient with everybody's time, you'll have a plan of items that we should look at, or locations we should look at based on the comments from our last meeting. We'll
Correct. That is correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's that's at 12 o'clock on Friday, and we're meeting at 1 Lakeshore Center, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Shane, can we ask for your phone number, or can we text you if we just have trouble finding that
I will-
one meeting location?
I will email everyone my phone number.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So-
Anything else, Mr. O'Brien?
Just to reiterate Bob's point on the August 22nd meeting of the Vines. So I explained it at the last meeting, but we'll have town council, ZBA, and planning board there for an economic discussion. And that will be a posted meeting. So I'll reiterate that at the August 16th meeting. But that's something, when we have a quorum of the board in attendance, that will be a planning board agenda item that would be available.
And Shane, and maybe Bob can answer this, that's an in-person meeting and it's open to the public?
Now, it's in person only for members of the planning board, town council, and the ZBA. Not my decision, but it's a workshop. It's a town council workshop.
So no members of the public are allowed? So
They'll be able to view it virtually, but they're not allowed to be at the meeting physically.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I got.
All right, Mr. Rulli, do you have anything? Are you all set?
I'm more than set.
Thank you. Any board comments at this point?
What time on the 22nd is that? Meeting?
7 o'clock at it's over on the BSU campus. As Shane said, he'll send out a reminder in terms of the location of the building. I think it's on Burrell Building, but Burnell, we'll get it to you.
Okay. Mr. Rulli, I've had a few people ask me that people seem to be excited about these save the dates for the 26th of September. Has there been a time and a location established yet for that date?
Yeah, it's at 6:30 at the Mitchell Elementary School. There are mailers that should be hitting people's mailbox either today, tomorrow, or the next day. It's on our website. So, but 6:30, September 26th, Mitchell Elementary School. refreshments, food will be provided, and childcare will be provided as well.
Nice.
Right.
I received mine today.
Perfect.
Cool.
We
All right,
learned
thank-
today that we have 237 properties under the name of the town of Bridgewater. So we got mail today.
We got mine yesterday.
Perfect.
All right, great. Is there anything else? Any other board comments? Where'd my agenda go? I think the only thing left is to adjourn, correct?
That is correct.
So item 4, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
By Mr. Geller, is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Jemian? I'll take the roll. Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Jemian,
Yes.
yes. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.